Well, I guess we are live. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for being part of the Factors.ai podcast here. And we have two great guests. And thanks a lot for making time at 12 noon EST. And for those who are joining from India, it's at 10:30 p.m. India time. Thanks a lot for making time. Today, we are talking about one really important topic, which is keeping a lot of CMOs awake, but most importantly, even the CFOs and the CEOs of SaaS startup Series A to upwards kind of awake in the night, and which is like paid ads used to be the primary driver, or at least 50 to 60% of new revenue used to come from paid ads. But paid ads costs are rising and the ROI is falling. And that's something a lot of SaaS marketers and CEOs have come to us with. And this is something which is bothering a lot of people. So we thought like it will be a great idea to get the experts in and talk about it. And for that, we have Jason and Jonathan from Omni Lab Consulting. They've been consulting for 5 years, but they've been marketers for much longer. And they've been working with hundreds of B2B SaaS companies. They primarily work with only B2B SaaS companies. And they are kind of what we call as like very strong experts in B2B paid marketing. And it'll be very interesting to get their views exactly on like what is happening in B2B paid marketing, what is the things which are changed, and more importantly, answer the questions around paid ad costs and ROI. Thanks a lot for making it, Jason and Jonathan. Welcome to the Factors.ai webinar.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
us.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Before starting off, Jonathan and Jason, just one icebreaker question. We are all very active on LinkedIn, so we post a lot on LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn profiles are superbly updated. But can you tell me one or two things which is not there on your LinkedIn profile but about you? That's something which we want to just start off with so that people know something beyond your LinkedIn profile and then see.
Hmm. I'll
Jason,
let
would you
Jason
like?
go because we were already starting with some good conversation before. So yeah, you start us off.
You want me to start it off? Okay. I'm a very
Yeah.
private person inherently, so my LinkedIn is, a fraction of life, right? But one thing I suppose, as Jonathan has attested to, because I don't stop talking about this, is my love for my motorcycle, right? I can't get enough. I'm a new rider, so I've had it for about 6 months or so, and I got a Royal Enfield, which is a great brand. I'm not making money off of this plug, but it is a good brand. And I can't get off the thing. I ride it for coffee every morning. I go on these great rides through the hills of Austin, Texas on the weekends. And I fired my therapist because after I got the bike, I just realized that I don't need a therapist anymore. I'm just going to go jump on the motorcycle and life is good. And so, that's my big thing right now. And I was mentioning a second ago before the recording that I think I might have to buy bike number two, and it might
Oh,
happen,
nice.
in the next week or so. And I don't know if that's a smart decision, but I kind of feel like I have to. So that's a little bit about me that I'm really excited about right now, but a little snippet that I sometimes don't share with the public. But yeah.
That's good. That's great, Jason. Fun small fact. I grew up in the city where Royal Enfield is made. That's in Chennai.
Hmm.
My father's first job in 1955, now he's 91 years old, was in Enfield. He basically built his own Royal Enfield bike and walked out of it just after his first job got over and joined another trucking company. But we are also, I have childhood photos of me climbing up the Royal Enfield or sitting on the trunk of it. And it's one of my most favorite memories. And great to see that you're also a biking fan. And my first bike was also a Royal Enfield. So that's a
Well, hey, as we were talking about, I'm going to come visit, and I got to see those pictures because I need to go
yeah.
through the beautiful terrain in your environment. So it's a really great connection.
I'll do that. And
When Jason
Jonathan,
buys his second bike, I'm going to take his second bike, and we're all going to go together because I need to, I guess, get a real infield too. So I joined the club. I
that's
actually
great.
had a bike way back when, not a real infield. I had a CBR 600, but no bike
Wow.
for me. But the only thing I guess I'd say that's not my LinkedIn that I do racquetball and tennis are kind of things I do off court just for fun on the weekends with some buddies. And then
Mhm.
I've got two young kids. I got a 4-year-old and a 1.5. So I mean,
Wow.
between even playing a little bit of tennis and having the demands of those little two, either keeping me up late at night or just want to run around and do all sorts of crazy stuff. That's pretty much expands all the time I have in the day. So that's pretty much all I
Very.
do. But yeah, there's a few things.
You haven't picked up pickleball yet, Jonathan? or
Yeah,
is that
I've played a handful of times. Everyone's crazy about it. We actually have courts in a neighborhood that they just put a pickleball, the lines and
Mhm.
everything in the court. But no, I haven't played a ton. More tennis and racquetball player. What about you? Pickleball?
I play pickleball. Incidentally, in my
See?
hometown city, Chennai, I also have a pickleball court and academy as well. So we have three courts. So maybe
Oh, really?
next
Oh,
time.
fun. Fun. I used
That's
to play paddle as well. I used to live in
oh
Spain.
wow.
Paddle is kind of
Mm,
not like pickleball per se, but it's got kind of
mm.
like the
Yeah,
racquetball side with
right.
walls and then the smaller court with the smaller rackets. So that was fun too. But
That's fun too. Yes. Great. That's interesting insights. Royal Enfield and tennis. And both of those are some of my favorite things. So we have something to connect on. And over to more serious topics. Why
mm,
are paid ads rising and why is the ROI falling? Jonathan, can you shed light into that?
yeah, let's see. So where do we want to start here? So everyone can see my screen, right? We're all good
Yeah,
there?
we
No
can. We
issues?
can.
All right, cool.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I guess the agenda really is these kind of four things we want to chat about, and I think
Mm.
that where I think we wanted to start, if I recall correctly, is just some changes that are happening in paid media at a really high level, and then we'll get
Yes.
into what you just said, which is why is CAC rising, what data supports that, and what's in our control to actually get it down. I think those are the core things. So we'll get into that,
Yes.
but really the three big things here, you can't have a webinar without talking about AI, I guess, because AI is everything and it encapsulates everything we see in the LinkedIn feed these days. And I think what specifically as it relates to paid media is changing is that, of course, you've got AI mode and AI overviews, which over the last year, call it 2 years or so, have been released that have notably impacted performance for a lot of brands. Ahrefs and SparkToro did some great research and found that click-through rates had dropped, I believe, if you look at different surveys, somewhere between 30 and 40%, mostly
Yeah.
for informational terms. And so I think for a lot of brands that were relying on tofu type content and informational keywords, they've seen their traffic essentially fall off a cliff. And so a lot of those now are being answered when you go to Google, just right at the top of the SERP with AI overviews. And so it doesn't mean that all traffic is going down. In fact, it's actually going up, which is also interesting. I forget the exact figure, but SparkToro had some really great data, and I think it was suggesting still somewhat an increase of 20 to 24% or something in terms of overall search traffic going up. And so I think the market's expanding a bit, not necessarily contracting. However, when you look at it from an attribution perspective, we're still getting less data and less clicks to the website. So I think that's one big thing. And ultimately, what
Mhm.
we're suggesting a lot of brands do is really focus more on, and this has been true for years, honestly, it's nothing new, but focus on bottom of the funnel terms, more high intent, things where people are actually evaluating
Mhm.
software. So they could use modifiers like app, tool, product, et cetera, or they could be jobs to be done based on the jobs to be done framework of the core things they're looking to do. For example, we had a brand we worked with that was an interactive content platform. That was a product category, but the core job that people were looking to accomplish was convert PDF to interactive or interactive PDF, I believe is the keyword. And so that's an example of something that's mid bottom of the funnel where people are looking to take an action and they need a tool to serve that. And so that's one big thing. Just to stop there and interrupt me and stop me. We can just kind of make it a
No,
conversation.
this is interesting. So what you're saying is like the number of clicks coming into the website is going down by 30, 35%, but the number of searches overall is actually increasing. So people are searching, they're consuming information, but they're not coming to the website.
Exactly, exactly. According to SparkToro data, there may be other studies out there that people have, but that's the
Mhm.
last report I heard that was, I think, earlier this year. So
Mhm.
we'll see how the rest of the year shakes out. But yeah, exactly. So we're still seeing
And the
more
same.
people searching, more people coming to Google, more people, querying Google for information, just less
Mhm.
clicks based off of those that were previously bidding on informational keywords, trying to drive that traffic to the website.
And of
But if
course,
it
that
is
will
low,
shift. Oop,
yeah, sorry.
sorry, go ahead. I was going to say
No.
that will shift also because, as you guys know, OpenAI and Atlas, new search
Mhm.
platform, new browser, of course, AI Max and Google have been kind of the focus of the conversation with AI and paid to date. But that's going to
Mhm.
shift ever so slightly in the future as well. And to add on to what Jonathan was saying, it's so important to tack on to the how to statement of fact versus just the I'm looking for a product. because the I'm looking for a product for B2B is not going to be facilitated by AI today. It might be in the future a little bit more heavily, but it's not going to be facilitated as heavily as like a B2C type of motion, right? And so getting in front of organic placements and content related to the how-tos and the jobs to be done, massively important. I know this is about paid, but for companies just looking to combat AI in the future, the how-to statements to get inclusive search results in these new browsers and these new AI systems is going to be a game changer. It's going to be essential.
Got it. One small thing is like when we reallocate budgets to more high intent keywords, do we have enough volume there? And are the costs going to be the same because the CPCs are going to be more higher because of lower volumes and more narrower search terms, right?
Yeah, 100%. Volume is going to be less than informational keywords, and the cost is going to be higher. But interestingly, anecdotally, and also through some of our portfolio, conversion rates have actually been increasing, and people have been driving more demand because
Wow.
I think it's really changing. Budgets are getting reallocated. This is not like new to this year necessarily, but over the last couple of years, budgets are being reallocated away from a lot of these informational keywords. So to your point, what that's doing is if you had 1,000 searches for high intent keywords related to a product category, and you had all these other people spending tens of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars into their informational keywords, that budget has now shifted down. And so that means the
Okay.
same 1,000 searches roughly are now going to cost more. Now, the conversion rates are going to be better down funnel into all the metrics we care about, like SALs, SQLs, opportunities, cost per op. But if you look at it from an in-platform perspective, yeah, 100%. You know, if I'm bidding on the word HIPAA versus HIPAA compliance audit, the cost difference in platform is going to be very different. But again, I think for us, you can't really over-index too much on the directional leading indicators and say, well, just because it's more expensive from a CPC perspective, we shouldn't bid on it. You really should be saying, all right, well, how are things converting down funnel? And does it make unit economic sense at the end of the day, right? So
Got it.
that's one thing to think about. So, but yeah, you're right,
Absolutely.
100%. Expect increasing costs there if you are going to be moving more of your budget to high intent. Key is looking down funnel, not just in platform. Otherwise, you'll get scared and you'll say, oh my God, my CPL is way higher than it was before. And of course, it was higher than it was before. I mean, people are spending more money on ads. Ad costs generally go up over time. Everyone knows that, just like the cost of gas or cost of bread, right? And so there's inflationary forces just on paid media as much as they are on any type of consumer product. So anyway, that's one thing.
Got it.
Two, so there's content depth. I could probably make this a better headline, but I think one of the other big things that's changing, and content isn't, I guess it's indirectly related, but it's one of the big things that we promote and distribute from a paid media perspective. And one of the things that we see a lot at Omni Lab is that we promote obviously a lot of content pieces. And so ever since AI, and really AI has been around for decades, so it's nothing new, but ChatGPT and Claude and all of these other LLMs have made it incredibly easy to just pump out Me Too blog content, which I think is good and bad depending on the level of quality of the content itself. It's good in the sense that we can make content a lot quicker and we need less people to do it. It can be bad though sometimes because sometimes there's not differentiated POV, there's not a narrative throughout it, there's no empirical research or data in it. The content sometimes is light, it's not deep enough. And I think people are really looking for content they can trust. And so I think this relates directly to paid media because if you've got another piece talking about something that really doesn't have a strong POV or narrative around it or a dotted line back to your product, that's going to directly impact how paid media performs for that specific content piece. And so the big things that we're saying, and I'll stop myself here in a second, is more brands being successful with doing things like we're doing right now, content collaborations. Jason and me are here,
Got it.
OmniLab and Factors together. I think it's great, so we also share similar audiences. So this is the type of thing, and you can do this in all sorts of formats, that people we should be doing more of. The other thing is influencers. And so you got lots of people that
Got
are
it.
SMEs in the space that people already have trust with. And then obviously going deeper with content. So it's less about what I think and more about real stories about what's actually working. So I'll stop myself there for some conversation, but one big thing.
Well, that's
Cool.
actually interesting. And this is something which we also saw in emails lot of copycat emails or AI generated emails, and the reply rates went down in email reply rates. The same thing is affecting in paid landing pages, creators, and others, because it's like lot of Me Too content and people are getting switched off. They don't want to see it anymore. And that's actually kind of the messaging is not creative enough. Humans, we are not actually working enough to actually make the content engaging enough. And that actually reduces the conversions and downstream impact.
Totally. Well, I think the key word there is differentiation, right? Like Jonathan mentioned a second ago, because that's the key to better content, one. But it's also key, it's a big miss that we see in product marketing outside of content that a lot of B2B SaaS companies suffer from. They'll be able to talk about features and even outcomes all day long. But I see a trend of them forgetting about the differentiating factor in this sea of competition that now is even more competitive than ever. They forgot that they are just one option of many options, and they cannot afford to leave out that differentiation. So the differentiation in the content, 100%, because otherwise you're just some AI, machine. And the other side of it is product marketing to make sure that when you have options in life, I made this silly comment the other day to a client or to someone, I forget, store, for example, if you were a market, we sell eggs. Everyone sells eggs. Why do I care? You have to differentiate yourself on why your version of that product is better. And so I think a nice little segue on the content is that differentiation, because it's so important.
100%. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot to say on that. I mean, we could make the whole webinar probably about just content itself. But yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done there. And then I think the other big thing, and I think this is top of mind for lots of people, if you spend even a minute of time on LinkedIn, the discussion of brand and the shift to brand and more interest in doing brand and investing in it has been a huge topic of not only this year, but even last year. And it's nothing new, right? I mean, brand marketing has been around for, forever, essentially, decades and decades and decades. But I think B2B has traditionally relied on, a lot of bottom of the funnel, intent-based, signal-based, even in the last, 2 or 3 years. And so now I think the discussion is, how do we make sure that for the 95%, as a lot of people probably heard the 95-5 heuristic by John Dawes of the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. It's obviously variable based on sales cycles and how often people buy a category, but as a general rule, most of the market is not ready to buy. And so the point of that rule is really just to set expectations and to better allocate budgets between brand and demand, because they have a lot of overlap, right? And so they're not completely distinct buckets, but there is a fundamental difference in the goals and objectives you set for a brand related campaign versus a demand one. And there's also different types of content and things that you would do in a brand campaign. And so anyway, for us, what we're seeing as it relates to CAC and this whole conversation, to put a bow around this slide here, is that if you're not mentally available in someone's mind for the key buying triggers or category entry points that you want to be associated with, then you will not be someone that they're going to seek out when they are in market. And so the brand conversation is around being mentally available, having distinctive assets, whether that's logo, fonts, even mascots, right? You've seen a lot of that. I mean, Post Hog, for example, has their Hoggies, I believe they're called. So very, very distinctive. You could do it in 1,000 different ways, but these are the things that you want to latch onto: is the buying triggers, distinctive assets, be top of mind, because Forrester, Sixth Sense, Gartner, you name it, everyone knows people have a short list before they, start looking for a tool. So
that's good.
To add to that real quick, I think this is an interesting thing that comes to my mind with a specific company that I dealt with recently, is that you have to also remember that being top of mind in different segments of the buyer's journey is massively important. Yes, we want to advertise to the people who are going to take that first step to start communication with your brand. That's a no-brainer, of course. But what I've seen happen a lot is that relationship and that top of mind space has been captured for lower level titles, that when the deal is accelerated to higher executives, especially for the mid-market, the deals are failing. They're falling off because there's no brand recognition to those people who are being brought into the buyer's journey at a later stage. And so when we talk about brand being so important, it's not just for potentially the conversation starters, it's kind of supporting the entire journey a little bit more holistically. And I think that's a really important thing that people need to remember.
Exactly.
Got
Plays
it.
it
That makes sense.
plays into psychological bias. One last thing, and we can't spend the whole entire webinar obviously on that slide, but plays into the mere exposure effect as well. And so it's just a proven psychological bias that the more familiar you are with something, the more likely you'll have interest in that thing. And so if I've seen Jason's name all over the place and I'm like, oh, Jason's here, I've gotten to know him even though I've never talked to him before. So if Jason reaches out to
Yeah.
me, I'm like, I know Jason, I know this guy from somewhere, and maybe you don't know him well or anything like that, but I'm going to be more likely to respond to him when I see
True.
his name pop up in my box. And so again, that's the thing
Got
that we want from an advertising perspective too.
it. Yeah, it's what we call as warming up an account in some form, right? Even whether
Yeah,
it's
warming up.
sales GTM or from a brand perspective, the kind of presence and awareness. Coca-Cola, for instance, it's like in India, it's like whenever they have made a positioning, like whenever you are thirsty, you think of Coca-Cola. It's not that Coca-Cola, it's a sugared water, it doesn't help you quench your thirst. But the whole positioning and imaging is like when you are thirsty, there is a certain brand association. And that is something is what uh, would apply for even every other marketing program as well, sense.
Exactly. Well, cool. All right, so let's get into a couple things. So why is CAC on the rise? I think this is, by the way, not a blanket statement. I don't think every brand is experiencing rising CAC per se. So obviously each person's going to have their own story, but I know Pavilion has done some research and had a really, really deep survey and analysis they did. And I think the number was around 14% is what they were seeing in terms of increases from 2023 to 2024. I'm not sure about this year specifically. I know for our client base, it seems to be kind of up and down for some. So, obviously the paid media agency, demand gen agency, we try to do our best. And we're going to talk about the things that are in our control and the things that we can actually do. So let's actually talk about that. I think that's maybe the best, kind of way to get into this. So ultimately, the takeaway here for me is you really have the things that are in our control as marketers and the things that are out of control as marketers. And we need to be very clear on what those things are. The things out of our control, though, help support the narrative of other things that are going on. So while we can't control them, we don't want to ignore them either. And so for us, when we're thinking about just paid media, like what can we do or what are some of the reasons why CAC might be higher? We're looking at things like, okay, we've got higher CPCs and CPMs, potentially due to competition, potentially due to bidding strategies or towards the types of audiences we're targeting. All sorts of things that we can change and do to lower those. Competition necessarily we can't change, but those are factors that influence CAC. Creative isn't distinctive. We talked about mental availability. Messaging that doesn't tie to buying triggers. Again, same point we just made about the shift to brand, making sure our brand is locked to the product category and the key triggers that they think about. Because ultimately, if they don't think about us, well, then what does that mean? It means that they didn't come inbound, they didn't convert on our website, and obviously we can't close them. So it's one thing. We've got the buyer journey, right? Keyword to add to landing page. This is 101 stuff, nothing new, just making sure that we align, the journey so it makes fundamental sense. I don't think we need to over engineer it. What the ad says, we want the landing page to say, right?
Got it.
And then I think the last thing is just the over reliance on performance marketing campaigns. You said it earlier a second ago, the move from informational to high intent, which has been happening for years, but is even more pronounced with AI. And so when we do that, what does that mean? It means CPMs, CPCs are more expensive because we're going after smaller audiences if it's intent or signal based, or if it's keyword based, we're going after high intent terms. There's less of them. There's more competition. So those are all the things that, those are reasons and things that are leading to rising CAC, and they're all things that we have some level of control over. And I'll stop myself there. The things on the right are all the things that maybe we don't have as much influence over, or maybe other teams own those things more so than a typical marketing team. So I'll stop myself there for a second. But
Yeah, to add to one thing on the pink side, that we were talking about before the call is, are you measuring the channel according to its perceived and its ability against the KPIs you're using, right? Big thing. We've got probably 4 slides in this deck on that, right? So it's like, cool. You're doing all these things. You're looking at CPCs, you got messaging, you got audience, you got your landing pages. But are you still trying to force a channel not necessarily designed for what you're looking for to produce that thing? That's going to be a big one we can get onto later, but important nonetheless.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, that's from a measurement side. Yes.
Exactly.
30 minutes before this call, I was on the phone with a VP of marketing that was talking about, interestingly enough, rising CAC. And we were talking about why, and I was getting into it. I thought it was so interesting. He was like, oh, I'm going to do a webinar. It's literally with Jason and you talking about this, literally the exact thing. You should join us. But what he mentioned was really interesting, and said that, when they analyzed a lot of the data down funnel, they found that a lot of the people that were coming in inbound, many of them from most of the programs they're running were ICP fit and good leads. It's that when they looked further down the funnel and after opportunities were created, they were losing deals. The close rate wasn't really where they wanted it to be. And so he's been really working a lot with the sales team, the sales director over there, to figure out how we actually improve the sales process so that the channel looks like it has a lower CAC or better return. Because his point is, you can't look at these things in isolation. You can't suffer from I think it's the fundamental attribution error is another psychological bias, but you can't just blame the channel and say CAC is high on Google, therefore I don't like Google. That makes no sense. Last time I checked, Google wasn't calling up your deals and negotiating the contract. Has nothing to do with that. And so we all know that it takes a team effort, and there's all sorts of teams that can impact CAC. And so for them, it was less a marketing issue, at least that's his narrative to the CEO, and more so an issue of, how do we improve our sales process? How do we better handle objections? How do we better position ourselves with other people that are in the market? And so that's what they're working on literally right now, because it's very clear that people are coming in that do meet ICP criteria and are converting into pipeline. They just have a problem turning that into revenue, which again directly impacts CAC. So
yeah. And in a sense, these are all like associated theme listening, because there is some part of product marketing in terms of what material, what sales enablement material which you are building. And then there is some part of sales training as well, which needs to come in for you to convert better in this. And it would have also been a case of like over the last 2 years, the market has changed. The sales team hasn't adapted enough for the market in terms of their training and other thing, which also needs to be looked at. In a sense, it still falls under the CMO, just that it's more product marketing rather than demand gen.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, at the end of the day, like we all know, the buyer's journey is in the hands of marketing. Like, sorry, sales.
Yeah.
Sales is the last people that people want to talk to, and that's been true. I mean, theoretically, since the dot-com boom, right? Since the internet, came on the thing. I mean, certainly habits have had to change over time, but the last thing people want to do is talk to a sales rep. They only reach out once they've already done all the research and talk to people they know in communities and Slack and word of mouth or Googling or chat GPTing and all that. And then they say, all right, fine, I got to talk to a sales guy because I have this specific question, or, I have a specific use case. So that's that. I want to go through a couple of quick things. I'm looking at the time, 12:35, because we only got, an hour here, but obviously costs on ad spend continue to rise. Everyone that spends on paid media knows that overall paid media has gotten more expensive and people are spending more money year over year. This is, a snapshot of something from, Work Media on some data that they pulled on basically looking at LinkedIn ad spend. So we know that more people are spending more money, and that means ultimately that the same eyeballs or the same audience you might be targeting is getting more expensive over time. And so there's no way around some of these things, minus, controlling bidding strategies, making sure you're targeting the right audience. All these things can add up to lower CAC. Same thing with Google. This is theoretically maybe a little bit of old data because they don't have the most recent 10K out for 2025. But when they do, I think we'll probably see the same fundamental trend, which is, more people spending more on Google. And we also know it's still the biggest channel for most brands.
Yeah. And the way the Google stock is raising, I think it should be a very good number whichever way you look at it.
Exactly. I'm really curious to see.
Well, also back to differentiation with these increased spends, the competition clearly rising. the focus on you is less, right? So it's going to take a little bit more heavy lifting for us to be able to compete in the same fashion, because I myself, like everybody on the call and everyone listening, is inundated by new things I need to buy constantly. So that just means that's getting a little bit more aggressive, right? Good old fashioned competition, but nonetheless important.
Especially for all those crazy vibe coders that are vibe coding apps in 2 days and then launching them in the market, raising $10 million, and then just adding more noise and product chaos and messaging, and for another thing for buyers to sit there and
That's right.
try to figure out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a data poll. This is Jason and I pulled this. This is basically across our whole portfolio, and you know, this is just to show that in general, and this is more a seasonality type of analysis here, is that, you know, if you're running paid and experiencing potentially higher CPMs and CPCs, which are good efficiency metrics, clearly we all care about cost per demo, cost per op, et cetera. It's not to say that those aren't important, but we need efficiency on the front end from a leading indicator perspective to then drive efficiency down funnel. So all these things are really important. And so what you're looking at here is just basic CPMs, which is a common thing that people will do in auctions, is bid on CPM, sometimes CPC. In this case, you can see a general trend rising, which means that, again, backing up the same point we saw with LinkedIn's global advertising revenue, we're seeing more people spend more money in Q4. Our own brands that we're working with right now are all spending more money. Why? People either behind on goal, they've got excess budget that they want to outlay, and also a lot of people, once it gets into the year, are usually evaluating different vendors. And so it's a good time where people want to come in and increase budgets and try to capture as much of that demand as possible. The key, though, for me, and something Jason and I know say all the time, is those first 3 quarters, we should have been doing a lot of awareness building on those channels so that we can capture it in Q4. Because if you're not that brand that's top of mind, you're just second, third, fourth, fifth in line trying to spend all the money in the world on Google. And sometimes it doesn't net out to be a positive benefit. And again, there's a ton of empirical research on this by the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So not a less an opinion, more a fact. But
Got it.
cool.
This is very interesting. So how the numbers are moving up. Cool. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go there.
And again, they're going to go down again. So what we're going to see, like this graph right here, this is going to go down. As soon as we get into Q1, it's going to go down. That's
It's a good
what
one. Yeah.
Jason and I were looking at data. It says it goes down just because, again, you got seasonality mixes. And so, you know, we're not necessarily, I mean, while the trend is generally up overall, you know, CPMs are going to fluctuate, obviously, you know, over the quarters. So Q1's, in fact, honestly, better time to be advertising if you want to be efficient. So I really liked this. Some of you might have seen this ad before. I think this is great. I'm going to read it off just real quick because I think this really backs up a final point related to why CAC is increasing, but it goes back to the shift to brand. But I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know your company's product. I don't know what your company stands for. I don't know your company's customers. I don't know your company's record. I don't know your company's reputation. Now, what is it you want to sell me? And the moral at the bottom, I think, is amazing. Sales start before your salesman calls or salesperson calls. We want to be a more equal here with business publication advertising. This is an old ad, but to me, it just backs up the simple point that we've been kind of reiterating this whole webinar. It feels like, you know, we need the awareness there so that you're not just the sales guy or girl calling up saying, give me a demo. How do we close you and how do we get you across the line? And so we want basically paid media to turn all these I don't knows into I knows. So to me, that's the takeaway on this. And Byron Sharp had a great, you know, takeaway on that. Most people know Byron Sharp in the
Well, it's
marketing
funny.
world.
We all know this age-old business statement of it's cheaper to retain a client than it is to win a new one, right? We've heard that for years. It's the same thing. It's less expensive to be able to sell into someone who has some form of trust with you and has general recognition of the brand and all of these really great bullet points in this ad than it is to try to go uphill against a cold audience who's never even heard of you, right? Very simple. This is like 1950 advertising, right?
Yeah.
It's what we're talking about. Nothing new, but important to support this ad, which is a great ad. right?
Exactly.
Oh,
That's great.
the one thing which I'm also realizing is the quality of ads or even the copies, because it's like in those times, less measurement with TV ads or with billboards and other the thing. But what they were focusing on is like, am I actually making the right message, the right creative to capture the attention,
Mm.
which in the age of lot more measurement and also data and a kind of like sense of like too many channels, we have actually kind of reduced focus on. It's a kind of like a lack of attention, like just like how kids with mobile phones, they are not so physically mobile. So it's a kind of like the brain rewires itself. So that is something like which we need to refocus our attention back on in the current scenario. For us to get the CACs back in control, we have to go back to originals of advertising or marketing in the first place.
Absolutely right. Well, Jonathan and I had this really long conversation the other night on authenticity, which I think correlates to your messaging statement.
Yeah.
Is I think brands historically, especially B2B, are terrified of being real. They're
Mm.
terrified of posting an ad like this. What they would much rather post is a message that's fairly neutral and safe and, quite frankly, boring. And they're fearful of having these statements that are authentic in nature out into the world because of what it's going to bring them. And I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I think brands and humans all need to be more authentic and just really speak truth. This is
Mm.
a truthful ad, in my opinion. It really paints a really clear picture of a reality that is true. Let's not hide behind it. Let's just get it out there in front of people, right?
That's it.
Exactly. So
Sure.
let's talk about what we can do. Let's get, I guess, a little bit practical. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things we can do. We talked about some things in our control. So I guess this is going to be a kind of, four different things that I think we can control, at least for Jason and I think you even would agree are things that we can directly kind of impact. And so the biggest things are, we all know that there's a lot of budget still going into Google. Google's not going away just yet. Certainly things are changing, but it's still a channel that could be highly profitable if run the right way for a lot of SaaS brands. And I think we've already made this point that, again, looking at compliance keywords in this example, we've got our low intent side, we've got our high intent side. Ultimately, we know that the clicks are going to be more expensive, as you said earlier, and we know that the clicks are going to be cheaper on the low intent side. Ultimately, the shift that we need to make is we need to make sure first, are we, from a non-brand perspective, on all of the core product category and jobs to be done keywords that have some type of intent based upon our definition? And this may be a little bit unique. It's not as easy as just saying, let's add app, software, or platform to the end of the keyword. There may be variations of it because certain customers search in different ways, right? And so we want to make sure that we're using our customers' language and the way that they describe your product and not just the way you describe it. And so again, that's where the nuance is. But this is the big thing I think that ultimately is going to not only decrease CAC, but just improve overall performance. And then the second thing that theoretically should be attached to the bottom of this that maybe we didn't add is making sure that we're actually optimizing towards offline conversions. And so I think we have a slide on this possibly somewhere. I think one slide that you added in possibly, but
Mhm. Yeah.
making sure that we're sending that back. That could be through factors, that could be through another attribution tool, could be through HubSpot. We need to get those events back to the
Yeah.
channel and or at least be reviewing it in the CRM so that if we find out, hey, wait a minute, data security audit has led to almost 80% of the pipeline over the last 3 months. These keywords, while they're high intent and they make sense, are not doing that. So why in the world are we not pausing these keywords because we've got an additional 50% impression share that we could capture just with this one keyword? I
Cool.
mean, how do you de-risk a program? That's literally how you do it. We're going to talk about this exact thing in more detail with some real data, but
Yeah.
I'll stop myself here for a second.
Well, also the attribution side of the house with, say, factors, for example, is great. And if you're a huge company who has a very long sales cycle, getting to that attribution might take a little bit of time. So what do
Yeah.
you do when you're waiting for that metric? Well, you
Mm.
install things like micro conversions and signals that indicate quality prior to that step of attribution taking place. Those are really important because if you've gone for 1, 2, 3 months and you're like, man, I can't stomach the idea of the money that I'm hemorrhaging on high intent keywords because our sales cycle is so long and I need to show something because I need hope that this is going to lead towards the right outcome, micro conversions and the steps in between those journey points is really important too.
No, that's a great point. One thing which we have been working on is like one of the things which you can control is the feedback which you can send to ad systems like LinkedIn and Google. And that's where a conversions API comes into place. HubSpot or CRM-based conversions API is very down funnel, like MQL, SQL data. But you can also look at conversion events on the website. As you said, micro conversion can be click on a demo page or a pricing page, even high intent company coming to a specific blog, etc. You can take that click ID data and pass back. And now the ad system learns. And what happens is we have seen in very clear theoretical, practical scenarios where like 10 to 20% of non-ICP clicks starts coming down. Earlier, for every 100 clicks, you get 30 to 40 non-ICP clicks. Now that has come to 10 to 20, which is a huge benefit because you're basically saving money from spent on non-ICP clicks, which anyways, even if they convert, you don't want those leads. Affecting your CAC down the line. Same thing with LinkedIn also with online conversions. Now, third-party insight tags are out. First-party data, you have partners like Factors.ai and few others who can actually send back data to LinkedIn ads as a system for LinkedIn to optimize better. This is the only other lever apart from creatives and landing pages, which are in our control, which we can actually help. Otherwise, everything else with Performance Max, AI Max, and LinkedIn's own ads algorithm, they automate that themselves or they optimize that themselves, but you need to send more feedback for it to work better.
You said it, optimization. I mean, if you get 3 leads a month and 1 MQL a quarter because of your company type, you must have other signals to train the models, right? We can't run from the fact that we as humans have a certain level of control, but we have to just make sure we are pushing the right inputs into the systems that we all manage to make sure that we're not sending the algorithm down a path of destruction, really. Right.
Makes sense.
Would be so fun to advertise toothbrushes or something like that and see hundreds and thousands of conversion points come in. Such a different world, right? B2B, you're in a low conversion environment, but man, I mean, you're in e-commerce and you're getting tons of data down to the ad level, and so it just makes it a lot easier to get statistical significance and all the other things. So yeah, to your guys' point, micro conversions and other things, anything we can feed the channel that's of quality with the things that we ultimately want is going to help performance. So yep, so that's one. You mentioned messaging earlier. I think that's a good call out. We're really big on making sure that we're clear and specific. I think the one thing that often happens is that we broaden out our message, either because we've got a broad audience target in the back end of any channel, or because simply we're just not being specific enough. And I think this is a decent example looking at Mixpanel. Now, a lot of people know Mixpanel, and so you could say that there's some awareness already, but unlock better decisions with Mixpanel doesn't really tell me much of anything. I still don't really know what category of tool this is talking about, and I really don't know what it actually does. And so track user behavior in your product, though, all of a sudden, there's a lot of cues on that. And so this comes back to the point of buying triggers or category entry points of what are the jobs to be done, what are the things that people are thinking about, the things they're trying to accomplish, and how do we get those front and center within our ads themselves. Now, not everything needs to be this plain Jane and straightforward. We can have the ads that are more out there and a little bit vague, but in general, we want to be really specific with what we're talking about and really use case driven, because some people just don't have an imagination. I don't know how I use this tool. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So let's tell them this is how you do it. This is how other people are doing it. Here's the use case. And let's not make them have to work harder to figure out what we're actually trying to say, because you've got, I mean, average dwell time on a LinkedIn ad's like 2 to 5 seconds, sometimes less than that. So you're talking about a very short time frame to capture someone's attention, quickly get them to understand real quick what does he do, who you are, and go from there. So,
hey, if you wanted to add a little differentiation, we could have an option 3, which is instead of track user behavior in your product, no other platform tracks user behavior in your product like we do. Interesting. I want to do the thing. I want to track user behavior. Now they're saying that they're the best. Interesting. Maybe I should pay attention. All right, it's a little bit of a long headline, no doubt. That would be far too long, possibly for an ad, but the concept still resonates for me, at least.
Exactly. I totally agree. Yeah. And so this is a big one. I mean, just getting specific. Next one is something I know Jason and I just talk about and beat down on every brand we ever work with. But there are some nuances to this, but very plainly, we have to do a CRM historical analysis of who's most likely to come inbound into the website, pure and simple, and then make sure that at bare minimum, our targeting from either a LinkedIn, Meta perspective, because you can do third party data with Meta, that our targeting is aligned to those same titles, the people that are actually going to come in inbound and trigger opportunity cycles. This is not made up data. This is a real snapshot from a real client. Looks like this, pulled this from, this is last year's data, but it's still very relevant to this year, which is, hey, great, we have no people that really meet the definition of a true decision maker here, or the C-suite, which is very common. I think sales and many executives will always want the person to sign the contract, and those people are important to get a deal done, but they often aren't that great at actually coming in inbound and triggering opportunity cycles. They delegate those decisions down. And so what we want to do is make sure we've done that research, assuming our data is good and organized in our CRM, which everyone, there's always some issue, but do those things. And then now we're starting to really align our strategy. And again, back to CAC, if we're targeting the right people that are most likely to come inbound, that are creating opportunities, guess what that means? It means that we're closing potentially more deals and CAC is going down. So this is another easy exercise, very practical, and I guarantee you, I mean, so many people would benefit from this because it all starts with targeting. I mean, ad channels are
Yeah.
targeting channels. So if you get your targeting right, even your mediocre ad will perform immensely better, even if you don't have the most innovative ad.
Then the most of it. No, actually, this is a good point. That's where analytics and account scoring and other aspects comes. You bring in all the data, you actually check what converted, what doesn't convert. You send the right filters out so that you say like, okay, this segment converted better, so let's target this segment and do better. Uh, at the end of the day, it's like more constant data watching, and this is where data can actually create a very high impact in terms of outcomes.
Absolutely. Well, we
Exactly.
say, CRM hygiene is massively important. But we're not talking about necessarily getting your deal properties in line. We're talking about, in this respect, making sure you have enriched data to be able to ask a very, very simple question. What percentage of seniority converts? And it's surprising whether you're a small B2B company or a massive enterprise level company, how that enrichment is not happening to the level that it really needs to be able to answer a simple question like that. So it's a very important distinction, because I run into this all the time where subjectively marketing teams for B2B companies will come to us and they'll have theoretical ideas of who their target is. We run this data analysis that Jonathan's talking about, and they have not had one opportunity driven from their theoretical subjective based audience for the last 16 months. And so for them, it's like it's an aha moment in the sense of, I didn't even know that we've been targeting the wrong people the entire time, right? So that's why the data is so important, clearly, as everyone knows. But
That's true.
Exactly. And there's, of course, some nuance. I mean, if you're headed up market or you're changing, there's some strategic initiative to change the ICP and data doesn't exist. Those can be scenarios. The buying committee is still important, right? Doesn't mean we never target them. It just means that when we have limited budget and resources, I want all that budget going to the people that are most likely to come into my CRM, have the conversation with sales, and then turn into pipeline. And so that's the game. The last thing here is really, again, coming back to something I think we said, the 95/5 rule by John Dawes. It's really a heuristic, not a rule, but more so just really, again, stating that we want to make sure that we're not just targeting and leveraging signal, intent-based data. We're targeting campaigns and Google Ads campaigns. Those are the bottom of the funnel type things that we all do from a paid media perspective. They are important. We should often start there for many brands. However, we do want to always have some budget allocated in different campaigns that are targeting people that are not ready to come in. And so we can't have all of our ads saying, get a free Yeti mug or get my $100 gift card, right? We have to have a balance of content and objectives for those that maybe aren't there yet or still researching about the category or what you do, or maybe it's not really that big of a problem right now for them, but it might be in the next few months or quarters. And so again, for me, I think this is just the biggest point. And
In my
again,
way.
Yeah, not opinion, based on empirical data. Everyone should go look at the B2B Institute or Ehrenberg Bass Institute. Those guys have way more data than us and have been doing this for years and years and years. And so ultimately, we just align with, we know fundamentally what works. And so it's just making sure you have the right balance between these things, so.
Yeah, in a sense, it's also like Sixth Sense came out with the whole, they had a book also, right? Like 95% of your buyers are in the dark yet still, and
Exactly.
they're not in the market or in your website. So you need to generate awareness, you need to get them back into the line, and that's where marketing comes into the place.
Exactly. Yeah, Chet Holmes had a book called, I think, The Ultimate Sales Machine, where he did the same type of test even before, this was even a thing that people were talking about it. He asked, how many people are in the market for a house or something like that, or a car.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something like, 5 to 10% of the audience raised their hand, the rest didn't. And he was like, well, that's a testament that if you're marketing and spending all your dollars on people that are ready to buy houses, well, you're missing out on the vast majority of the market, And so, I think it was a good kind of visual thing. I know you added these in here. I'm going to let you
Yeah.
kind of a little bit more here on these couple.
Yeah, this is something which we ran for LinkedIn Ads Impact, and specifically with generally multi-touch attribution. It's generally tuned towards paid click-based, but a lot of ads happen on a view-based system, especially something like LinkedIn. It's like a billboard. You see a billboard, you don't immediately click on it or act on it. Later, you note it later down the week or 2 weeks later, you go to the website and buy. That goes as an organic search or a paid search, but the impact of the billboard doesn't get actually shown there. The same thing also happens on LinkedIn ads. People see LinkedIn ads. Very few people actually click on LinkedIn ads. Later, they go on paid search or organic search on Google when they actually search for the brand and then they click and convert. The conversion happens. This was something which we knew intuitively and we tried to test it out also. So the report is basically like from January 1st to November 4th, 2025, which is actually 2 days back. 13,400 visitors on the website. The form submission is 8%. This is plain through paid search alone. So we had an 8% form submission rate. If you go to the next slide here, what we did is like filter for only those companies which have had seen more than 100 impressions on LinkedIn. So the same set, but only filtered for only companies which have seen at least 100 impressions. Because for the same set of companies which are coming to our website and also into our paid search and other this thing, we also have a ICP target which is there, and we run ads, and we saw like how many of them then converted. Here it came out to 983 companies had seen more than 100 impressions of LinkedIn ads. And from that 983, the conversion rate is 13.2%. So from 8% to 13.2%, it's like 5% lift, which is very significant. But one more question which people get asked is like 13,000 to 1,200 is a very, very different number to 983 to kind of like 130 here. Is it statistically significant? That's why we ran the P test also, which is a statistical confidence test. If you go to the next slide, you would be able to see that where like we ran the p-test, and this is something which is publicly available with SurveyMonkey and so many of those things. So you did a two-sided test with a 99% confidence level. And what it came out is like variant B is 61% higher than variant A conversion rate. You can be 99% confident that variant B will perform better than A. This is more of a test for you to understand, like, is it a fluke impact because you are considering different populations in the same base, or is it actually real? Can you be statistically confident about it? And the result came out to be confident. This is something which is very important for all marketers to do, because when they take two sample sizes, you may not always get the same sample size, but still within the same sample size, different sample size population groups, are you able to say with statistical confidence that this works? It's 99% plus confidence, which is actually very, very good. Now you can go and proceed like, okay, running LinkedIn ads and making sure I show LinkedIn ads to the same set of accounts with more than 100 impressions actually works better for me in overall conversion rates. And this is not something which is limited to paid search alone. You can also do it for your organic. You can do it for outbound. That is, companies which you reach out to outbound, how many of them convert? If the same companies have also been shown LinkedIn ads, do they convert better? You can do all this tests, and that's something which we did in our backend. We are also publishing it with our LinkedIn benchmark report to actually then prove that, okay, running LinkedIn ads is not kind of like only based on last touch or how many leads you got directly from LinkedIn ads, and then for you to say LinkedIn ads is too costly. LinkedIn actually helps you convert far better or 60 to 65% more on your paid ads. Hence, if you
Mhm.
remove LinkedIn ads, the cost of conversions or CAC for your paid ads is going to be higher. And that's something which we were able to prove out.
This is a great study, great couple of slides. I mean, a lot of the thought process of CAC rising or just being at an uncomfortable rate is, to your point, looking at first or last touch only. There's still there's a
Yeah.
lot of brands who just aren't willing or able to jump on the multi-touch bandwagon. And I think that they're missing out on opportunities to really let their dollars work for them from a paid media perspective. This is a great stat. I mean, it's a big jump, isn't it? That's significant, especially if you trace it down from a lead to customer rate, depending on the company. Significant.
Okay. And you can also, while the numbers are different, you can still see it. And this also even applies for even like third-party signals like Bumble or G2 other signals. People buy these signal products, then they are worried about whether they actually work or not. So then you can also even apply like companies which have seen your G2 profile, do they convert better compared to those who haven't seen your G2 profile? Companies which have seen your G2 competitor signals, when you outbound to them, do you have a better reply rates compared to those who don't? This then implies like what you need to do with your profile, what you need to use with the signals, and how do you approach these signals. All these are all like minor at a very base level. This is not like I'm not doing advanced data science here. It's basically comparing funnel charts. And
Mm-hmm.
this, in the decision making for a marketer, the SDR team, and the sales team, has huge impact in terms of pipeline and revenue. Because even couple of percentage improvement in the overall conversion rate, it's like at least 3 or 4 more deals down the line. 3 or 4 more deals down the line, then the CAC from looking at something around like $5,000 per deal actually comes down to something around like $2,500 per deal, which is very, very different. And then the CAC starts making sense. It's not 18 months anymore, or it's actually less than 8 months now, in a sense.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I'm gonna get you on more calls with our customers. So when they sit there and say, "Why don't I see a zillion leads in LinkedIn?" We say, "Well, there's a thing about the click-based conversions that is good. We do want to see those things, but there's also all the other people that are still consuming the message in channel and coming in different ways." I had a feeling that us three were going to have the rant of a lifetime. I don't know how you guys feel about time and everything. I think we've got only a handful of slides. What do you feel like we should do? I'm happy to go just a little
We'll
bit over
just um, we'll
around,
just run through
or
it. We'll just run through it. We have another 2 or 3 more minutes. We can run through it.
okay. All right, well, let's go a little bit quicker on a couple things. So this was some data we pulled. And so when you're thinking about like a practical exercise of again using Google search, because I think it's an easier channel to start with. A lot of people are familiar with it, already spending money there, is to take the last 3, 6 months, or even 12 months of data, depending on your sales cycle, and go ahead and pull all the campaigns that you're running on Google. And you can do this by term, of course, too, which would be important. But in this case, we pulled all the campaigns, search impression share, conversion rate, conversions. These are in-platform metrics here to the left, and these are CRM-based metrics to the right. And so it's nothing that anyone hasn't seen before. It's just something that I think often we don't take the time to do this type of analysis. And what is the takeaway here? Well, one of the biggest ones is we spent 100, this specific brand. This is I believe,
Wow.
Series C B2B SaaS brand, and their ICP is, I believe it's IT folks, if I'm recalling correctly. So that's a little bit of context there. But 70 MQLs, $125,000 spent, $1,700 per MQL. For them, MQL means someone that's an ICP fit. So generally speaking, they should be quality, but there isn't a requirement that they fill out a high intent form. That's just the way they define it right now, just for context. SQL is someone that the sales team has already approved. They are truly qualified. There's an opportunity. So what you can see here is we spend an enormous amount of our budget, more than any other campaign that we're running right now. And you look down funnel, and we're only seeing 2 ops that are costing us almost $62,000 compared to some of the other campaigns. Next worst one
Oh,
performing is this one at 53,000. And for reference, the ACV for this brand is about 30K. So
oh,
you can see the unit economics just fundamentally don't make sense. Now, does that mean it's a Google problem? Maybe, but in this case, to me, this is more of an issue of targeting, focusing on the right keywords, and making sure your budget's more efficiently spent on the stuff that we know is working, right? And so I think often
yeah.
people look at this and say, doesn't work, channel sucks, I hate Google, I don't want to spend on it, everyone's fired. That's the easy decision. It's the easy button. We all like to push it. But the reality is you got to do this analysis. And this is even at the campaign level. Within this, at the term level, there might be only 20% of the keywords in one of these campaigns that are driving most of the results. And so again, this is the very simple analysis that I think everyone can do. And again, this is a little bit easier to do with Google Ads or Bing because usually it is a little more last touch oriented. And so these are the little optimizations you make at the bottom of the funnel. And those carry over to this, which maybe Jason, I'll maybe let you chat a little bit more about this because this was you doing this analysis, I believe, but pretty interesting here too.
It's just we see this often, these three pillars that are oftentimes forgotten about. And I think that it goes back to paid search 101, really, especially in the B2C world. But for B2B, it matters. Device type conversions, cost per leads on desktop versus mobile. You could throw tablet in there as well. Kind of depends. Of course, you need to trace this down to pipeline and revenue generated, kind of like on the prior table. But we just see mobile CPLs very high comparatively. Now that could be for various reasons. Someone's on their phone, they're not paying attention, they don't really care. They click and they just don't convert and they forget. And then to your point earlier, maybe they come back through an organic or a direct channel, and that does actually happen. That would be a very interesting study to perform as well. Of the clicks happening on mobile, is there a follow through other channels that do come back historically? That'd be great to know. But we see desktop performing typically much higher than mobile. Gender is something that I think is not looked at enough. We see sometimes that there is definitely a leaning towards one gender or the other. And as much as we would like to just, not take a look at that and just call it par for the course, I think that we do have to follow the data in this respect and others to make sure that we're extending the runway of our paid media budget. No brand has just an unlimited amount of money to spend. And so the device type, the gender, the day parting, the age is one that didn't make it onto this slide. That's very, very important. A lot of brands we walk into, they've spent an enormous amount of money on 18 to 24-year-olds when they're an enterprise company focused on something that has nothing to do with that age category. And they wonder why conversion rates holistically, when they roll this information up, are suffering. Well, conversion rates is because you wasted $60,000 on 18-year-olds that live in a city and a geo that has never converted for your company once in the history of time. And you allow $40,000 to go out the door every Saturday and Sunday without a conversion ever. Right.
Gosh.
And so these things are fundamental, I know. And even saying this out loud, it's like advertising 101 kind of stuff. But even though it is, it's still a problem that needs to be addressed at a higher rate. So there's many more of these that we run. I have this really fancy dashboard that we use internally to kind of bubble this information up on all of our clients. And we look at it routinely to make sure that things are in check. And one last thing, and then I'll shut up, is this is not to say that you just log in, go analyze these numbers, say, for example, turn off mobile, turn off females, stop advertising on Saturday and Sunday for the rest of your life. Who's to say that the buyer's journey and humans don't evolve so that maybe at one point in the future that flips? You have to have a good cadence of going back to these different platforms and or targeting types to give them life again, to reanalyze at a cadence that kind of makes sense. So that'd be the only little caveat to all of these.
Actually, while you were saying this, it also reminded me like how AI has a great play to this, because when you feed in the data and have it into some kind of LLM models, can actually then come back and come with your suggestions and decisions, insights of these kinds very fast, which humanly it's much more harder to do on a day-on-day basis. And this is where you can't outwork the AI, but the AI can really be a co-pilot for you, which is and one kind of a segue here is like we are building the Vectra marketing assistant agent here, which is as a co-pilot for marketers, where you can analyze and get insights on your data with simple prompts and asking questions and this continuously implements. That's good.
That's great. Yeah, AI definitely can help us get to this information quicker. And some of this stuff is just fundamentally easy, it just makes sense on paper. So I think people need to not be afraid to flip a switch whenever they see things like this, but
makes sense.
The next, this is cool. I think this pulls us to the end, and obviously we can share the deck and all sorts of good stuff. But yeah, where do you want to kind of close this out? Any kind of final thoughts? I know there were a couple of other slides here, but I know we're quite a bit.
Yeah,
Quite a bit.
that is more around the Google Ads optimization, which we even talked. But this is hugely interesting. Our final thoughts here is like more importantly, more of the things which I think as marketers, which we can focus on was like things which are under our control and things which are beyond our control, and also analyze where things can actually go wrong rather than make a very easy decision of like just blame the whole channel. That is one thing which was more kind find some villain and just thing rather than going inside into the data. The second aspect, which you also mentioned, is like going back to the basics of marketing, better copies, better targeting, better analysis in terms of like where it's working, where it's not working, so that you can do a better optimization. This is something which is getting missed out. And most importantly, also understand and embrace the change due to AI. So that go for high intent keywords, which can have better downstream conversion rather than top of the funnel keywords. This is a change which is happening, so we better adapt to it much earlier. And more importantly, articulate this opinions internally as well, so that within the team, whether it's or the CFO or the CEO or the CRO, they also understand what are the changes within marketing so that they can have a better kind of empathy towards waiting for results rather than kind of demanding all results in the day one, or like I want my April results to happen, pre-ChatGPT results to happen in the post-ChatGPT world.
Totally. Two things stand out for me of everything that we've said and everything that you just said. Be realistic and use data. Those are the two big categories that I think everything rolls up to. Be realistic about what to expect from these channels, and then use the data properly to get to the right information. With those two things, I think paid media holistically starts to make a little bit more sense for folks, right? So, well said.
That's good. That's good.
You guys did
And
it well.
we are towards the end of the webinar. Thanks a lot, Jonathan and Jason. One, I personally learned a lot, including the books which I had to learn, and also actually I think I will make a couple of LinkedIn posts about it. So I will be taking some content from here. So thanks a lot for sharing all those insights. And India has a lot of big mountains, India and Nepal, so this part of the world, and we have a lot of Royal Enfields. So I hope one day I can get to host you here. That's
I'm going to hold you to that. This is recorded, so I'm going to definitely
yeah,
hold you to that.
for sure.
I want to see that. I want to hear more about your dad. I think that's some great stuff. So
I will make a post on that as well. I'll send you the pic there. Sure.
You should.
Great.
That's great.
Thanks for having us on, man.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for participating, everyone, and hoping for another episode soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.